He tells you he likes you, and then suddenly he disappears. One moment he opens up, shares something honest, something personal, and the next he slips into silence as if none of it mattered. One day his messages feel warm and full of affection, and the next he becomes distant, cold, almost unreachable. And you're left sitting there, wondering the same thing again and again. Is he truly falling in love, or is he simply playing with my feelings? But what if I told you that what looks like confusion might actually be a quiet test? That sometimes when a man is genuinely catching feelings, he doesn't move closer. He steps back, not because he doesn't care, but because he's scared of how deeply he does. You know that strange mix of hope and fear when your heart begins to open, but your intuition whispers that something feels off. When his behavior doesn't match his words, and the inconsistency leaves you tired, yet somehow even more attached to him. That emotional push and pull can make even the strongest woman doubt what she feels. But if you're a woman who has loved deeply, who has tasted both the joy and the pain of connection, who still believes that real love exists beyond fear and ego, then what I'm about to explain may help you see everything differently. There's a moment, soft and almost invisible to everyone else, when a woman realizes she's being tested. It doesn't arrive with drama or arguments. It's not loud or obvious. It appears quietly in the silence. Suddenly he stops calling, his tone changes, his messages grow shorter, unclear, as if he's slowly pulling away but doesn't want to say it openly. You start wondering if you imagine the closeness you felt earlier. In that silence, something instinctive rises inside you. A small voice asks, "Am I safe? Am I wanted? Or am I being emotionally toyed with again?" What most people never understand is that a man who is falling in love does not always move forward. Sometimes he steps back almost invisibly because love feels dangerous to him too. It shakes the parts of him he tried to keep hidden. It reopens wounds he pretended didn't exist. It challenges the identity he has spent years building. He tests, not because he wants to hurt you, but because somewhere deep inside, he wants to know if the connection is stable. He may trigger your nervous system without even knowing. He wants to see, often unconsciously, if you remain grounded even when he pulls away. Can you stay steady when he stops being affectionate? For a woman who has experienced toxic relationships or trauma bonds, this feels painfully familiar. The younger version of her, the one who learned that love always comes with doubt, wakes up. She doesn't just want reassurance, she needs it to feel safe. And that's where the real test begins, not for him, but for her. Because in that silence, her mind becomes a battlefield. Did I do something wrong? Is he losing interest? Should I fix this? Do I need to prove my worth again? But what if his silence isn't rejection at all? What if it's a mirror, showing you the places where you still abandon yourself for love? What if it's not a test of loyalty, but a test of your emotional strength? A woman with self-worth doesn't run after tiny crumbs of attention. She doesn't fall apart the moment a man becomes quiet. She stays centered, not because he gives her attention, but because she trusts herself. She knows that true feminine power doesn't come from chasing or trying to control someone's behavior. It comes from trusting her own ground. She doesn't beg for closeness to calm her fear. She stays still and lets the truth reveal itself. And here's the truth. Whether he knows it or not, he's watching your emotional stability. He's observing whether you can sit with uncertainty without abandoning yourself. Do you choose dignity or desperation? Can you stay centered even when things feel confusing? This is where real connection is built, because true intimacy isn't created through constant reassurance. It grows through emotional strength, through the quiet confidence that says, "I am whole on my own." When you do that, When you choose calm over panic, something shifts. He feels it. He feels the stable energy of a woman who doesn't beg for love, but naturally attracts it. That kind of energy draws a man closer. It's soft, powerful, grounding, and it's rare. But the testing doesn't end there. The next test comes in a different shape, softer, but just as revealing. This one isn't about distance, it's about boundaries. There comes a moment when the line between affection and control blurs. Maybe you're laughing together during dinner, light-hearted and relaxed, and then he makes a joke that hits too deep. A comment about your past, your appearance, or how you seem too much. Or maybe his touch lingers in a way you didn't agree to, and suddenly you wonder, was that a joke? Or was that another test? This is the second kind of test, the one rooted in instinct. Every man wants to feel the strength of a woman's boundaries. He needs to know that your values are solid, not easily bent, because a man cannot build emotional safety with a woman whose walls crumble under pressure. Think of it like building a home. A house without strong walls cannot survive storms. A man respects what he cannot easily influence. That's why feminine energy isn't weak or passive. It is open, yes, but also sharply aware. It senses shifts, feels tension, and responds with calm strength instead of fear. Real feminine power doesn't fight for control. It simply decides who has access and who does not. Many women who have been hurt before struggle here. Their desire for closeness collides with their instinct for protection. Do you ignore the comment to keep things smooth? Do you stay silent to avoid conflict? Or do you breathe, stay grounded, and set a gentle but firm boundary? Because it's not about the comment, it's about how fast you abandon yourself to keep the peace. It's about how much truth you bury to avoid disappointing someone. Women from emotionally unstable backgrounds often learn that speaking up leads to rejection, so they stay quiet, hoping love will fill the gap. But silence also sends a message that your respect is flexible. A woman with self-respect knows that each uncomfortable moment is a chance to teach others how to treat her. She doesn't react with anger or shrink in fear. She speaks her truth calmly. That didn't feel right. And when she does that, when she stands in gentle power, everything shifts. He feels it. The atmosphere changes. In that moment, she becomes someone not just to desire, but to respect. Still, even after this, another silence often appears. He steps back and watches. Was that real confidence or just a show? And so the next test goes deeper. He says little or nothing. He just observes how you exist when he isn't feeding the bond with attention. There's nothing more confusing than the silence that comes after emotional closeness. One day he tells you how special you feel to him, how rare your energy is, and then he slips into his own world. Not forever, but long enough for doubt to return. Long enough for you to replay every detail. It's not loud rejection, it's quiet uncertainty. And that silence can feel heavy. So why does he do this? Why share something deep and then disappear? The truth is, when a man starts to feel real emotional attachment, when intimacy grows roots, his instinct may not be closeness, it may be distance. He wants to know if the connection can survive space. He wants to know if he can be seen fully and still feel safe. He pulls back not to punish you, but to see if you can handle uncertainty without losing yourself. Because for him, love is not just closeness, it is risk. The risk of being seen, being vulnerable, being needed. And in that risk, something powerful happens. His withdrawal activates your deepest wounds, the fear of abandonment, the need for reassurance, the belief that love must be earned. But if in that moment you stay with yourself, no chasing, no over-explaining, no begging, you pass the test that matters most. Because in the end, love doesn't grow through chasing or proving. It grows through presence, through two people who can face uncertainty, stay open and meet in truth without losing themselves. It touches something deep inside her. Old hurts she thought were gone start to stir again. The times she was ignored, ghosted, or left without any explanation come flooding back like shadows from the past. Her nervous system doesn't just feel distance, It reacts like danger has returned, and if she isn't fully aware, she responds without thinking. She begins chasing the connection, sending messages, trying to fill the quiet space, doing everything to fix something that might not even be broken. That's the trap, the emotional loop, the inner trigger that keeps her stuck in uncertainty. But for a woman who has stepped into her healed feminine energy, the silence starts to mean something different. It's no longer something to fear. It becomes a mirror, a gentle pause, a place to breathe. She doesn't rush to fill the empty space because she understands that not every pause means rejection. She becomes the space itself, calm, steady, anchored. Not because she's cold or disconnected, but because she finally knows that real emotional safety doesn't come from controlling someone else. It comes from leading her own heart. A man in love, even unconsciously, wants to see this. He wants to see what happens when he stops feeding the connection. Do you fall apart? Do you push? Do you slip back into old habits of overgiving? Or do you pause, breathe, manage your emotions, and keep living your life without trying to prove your worth? Through his quiet watching, he sees more than your reactions. He sees your relationship with yourself. He notices your discipline, your emotional balance, your ability to stay whole, even when things feel uncertain. And through that, something inside him shifts. He doesn't just feel attraction, he begins to feel safe with you. Because a woman who doesn't collapse in his absence is a woman he can trust with his presence. Safety has many layers. And sometimes the next test doesn't come through distance at all. It shows up through closeness, through intimacy. He slowly starts opening up, carefully, quietly, and he pays attention to how you react to his shadows. Even the strongest man, when he begins to love, secretly fears being truly seen. It's in the slight drop in his voice when he talks about his father. It's in the soft confession that he doesn't feel as confident as people assume, or when he admits that someone in his past hurt him deeply, maybe even broke him in ways he rarely speaks about. These moments aren't just stories, they are thresholds, small emotional bridges he's trying to build between you and his inner world. Each one carries a silent fear. Will you still see him the same way after hearing this, or will you turn away, judge him, or pity him? For many men, especially those raised to believe vulnerability is weakness, opening up feels like standing uncovered in a storm. The armor doesn't fall to impress you. It falls to test you. He is silently asking, can you hold this without harming me further? And this is where feminine energy becomes something much deeper than softness. It becomes presence, not reactive, not rescuing, but steady. A deep listening that hears what he cannot say. It's the quiet strength of a woman who has learned not to fear pain, neither her own nor his. But this is where things can get complicated. If you've spent much of your life being the one who saves, who heals, who fixes people to feel wanted, his vulnerability can pull you into dangerous territory. Without even noticing, you shift from being his partner into becoming his counselor. You begin carrying emotions that were never yours to carry. You take on responsibility for wounds he must face himself. He senses this quickly, and he doesn't pull away because he doesn't care. He pulls away because he feels trapped, caught in emotional dependence instead of mutual love. A woman with strong self-worth doesn't drown in a man's pain. She doesn't swell up trying to be his hero. She listens with warmth. She offers safety, but she stays centered. She doesn't make his healing her duty. She allows him to see himself clearly through her acceptance without losing herself in his struggle. And something powerful rises in that space. He realizes that love doesn't mean losing independence. He begins to understand that intimacy can exist with boundaries, that emotional safety isn't about avoiding discomfort, it's about taking responsibility without fear. He learns that he can show his darkness and still be met with light, that he can reveal his flaws without being swallowed by them or by you. But then another layer of uncertainty appears. He wonders, silently, was that true compassion or just a performance? Is your empathy real or only when things are easy? Will you still hold that space when he isn't at his best? When his actions trigger you or become difficult? He doesn't say these questions, he watches. And then one day, without warning, another small test begins. Sometimes you won't even notice it. You're out together and another man appears. Maybe it's the barista who smiles a little too long, the friend who compliments you twice, or the co-worker whose name you mention one more time than usual. In that moment, his attention isn't really on the other man, it's on you. Not because he's insecure, but because something deep inside him is observing, asking quietly, "Can I trust you when I'm not looking? Are you loyal even when you don't have to be?" For a man who is beginning to truly love, especially one who has known betrayal or unstable environments, trust is something built slowly. It forms piece by piece through small, consistent actions, not loud promises. He doesn't become jealous like someone immature. He observes your direction, your choices. He watches where your energy moves when the world offers you attention. It's not possession, it's awareness. Does your energy stay aligned, returning to him because you want to, not because you're expected to? Do you honor your relationship without treating attention like a game? These tiny moments reveal more than you think. But if you've been shaped by past abandonment, if your history taught you to seek validation to feel noticed, you may unconsciously flirt or draw attention just to feel secure. Maybe you mention an ex, not to compare, but to remind yourself that you once mattered. These are old habits formed when love felt unstable, when feeling chosen felt temporary. And even if you truly love this new man, part of you might still be testing, asking quietly, "Am I enough? Do I still have power if this ends?" You don't speak it, but he feels it. He feels it in your tone, in the moment your eyes stay too long, in the small shift in your energy. He can sense when you're split, when your heart is present but your fears pull you elsewhere. If he is emotionally aware, that shift unsettles him, because for him, loyalty isn't about control, it's about inner clarity. And when he meets a woman whose worth is whole, who doesn't chase attention to feel valuable, he feels something rare, peace. A woman rooted in her healed feminine energy doesn't act loyal, she simply is. She doesn't dim her light to make him comfortable, but she doesn't use it to collect validation either. She becomes magnetic because her confidence is quiet and her boundaries are firm. Her energy says, "My value isn't up for negotiation." And when she moves like that, graceful, grounded, bright, but self-contained, he feels something deep, emotional safety, the kind that makes a man lower his armor not out of weakness, but because he finally feels safe enough to be real. But trust doesn't grow in one moment. It grows over time through patterns, challenges, and small unseen choices. And that's why his next test isn't about silence, distance, or jealousy. It's something deeper, a test of your beliefs. He starts to challenge the things that shape your world, not to upset you, but to see if your strength is real or just a protective mask. It begins small, almost playful. You say you believe in therapy and he smiles slightly. Isn't that just another modern trend? You talk about your passion project and he half jokes that maybe you're using work to avoid closeness. At first, it feels playful, almost like harmless teasing, but underneath it, he's searching for something real. He wants to see if you can hold your truth without needing his praise. Can you stay open without getting defensive? He isn't only questioning your thoughts, he's checking your emotional grounding, the strength behind your calmness. It's not openly aggressive, but there's a slow building tension, a quiet challenge that asks something deeper. Beneath everything sits a silent question. Do you truly stand by what you believe, or do you shift when your values are pushed? When a man begins to genuinely fall in love, he's not just drawn to your softness or the gentle parts of your nature. He's also drawn to the structure inside you, your steadiness, the inner walls that don't collapse the moment life leans against them. He doesn't do this on purpose. It's instinctive, almost built into him. When his feelings deepen, he starts to test the foundation of your spirit. He wonders, do you hold these values just to feel strong, or did life shape them through lessons, growth, and pain? And this is where the paradox begins. Many women, especially those shaped by painful or unhealthy relationships, were taught early that being easy to please was the safest option. Disagreeing meant danger. Speaking their truth meant risking conflict or abandonment. So they learned to shrink, to smile through discomfort, to soften their edges just to maintain peace. They confused compliance with connection and silence with safety. So when a man challenges them, even softly, they freeze up. They switch the topic, laugh nervously, or lower their voice, hoping to restore calm. But a healed woman moves differently. She doesn't show her strength through force, and she doesn't fold just to be accepted. She meets the moment with presence, not to win an argument, but to stay connected to her truth. Her feminine energy at this level is more than kindness and warmth. It carries wisdom. It radiates calm self-awareness, an unspoken confidence that says, "This is who I am." She isn't triggered, and she doesn't look for validation. She doesn't crumble when a man questions her dreams or direction. She listens, not to defend, but to reveal the depth behind her choices. And that throws him off, because he's not used to being met with that kind of clarity. Most people either fight or retreat when challenged, but she reflects. She pauses. She responds from clarity, not fear. And in that moment, he realizes she doesn't depend on his approval to feel worthy. She knows herself, and that is what draws him in. Still he wonders, not out of doubt, but out of curiosity. Is her strength steady, or only temporary? Does she stay centered when he becomes distant, confused, or inconsistent? When love feels messy or uncertain, does she remain whole? The next test doesn't show up in words, but in subtle patterns, in small moments that awaken old memories. A slight shift in tone, a sarcastic comment that cuts deeper than it should, a sudden quiet where there used to be warmth, nothing dramatic, but something inside you stirs. That old whisper returns, "This feels unsafe," and suddenly your heart recognizes a pattern you thought you had healed. This is the hidden paradox of healing. Even when you meet better, more aware men, part of your nervous system still waits for the storm. It remembers the chaos you once lived through, and sometimes the man in front of you, without meaning to, mirrors those same emotional patterns, not because he's wrong for you, but because real intimacy always brings your shadows to the surface. When true closeness begins, the mind pulls up old pain to see if it still controls you. When this happens, he's observing unconsciously how you react when he accidentally resembles your past. Do you lose your voice again? Do you try to fix, to please, to prove you're enough? Or can you stay with yourself this time, breathing through the discomfort without abandoning your truth? This is where real growth starts, not in being perfect, but in being aware. When you notice the pattern and choose not to repeat it, you reclaim your power. That is what separates a woman of deep worth from the rest. Not that she avoids hard moments, but that she refuses to repeat old wounds. She no longer gives up parts of herself just to feel loved. She names what hurts without turning it into a weapon or expecting someone else to save her. And when she does, something shifts in him too. He realizes you're not seeking perfection, only presence. He sees you don't need him to rescue you because you've already learned to stand with yourself. Yet under his curiosity lies one last question. Is her strength only visible when love is gentle? Or can she walk away when love turns heavy or painful? So without knowing it, he pushes one more time, not to see if you'll stay, but to see if you know when to leave. Then comes the silence. The energy changes. He's there, but not fully. The warmth fades. The laughter sounds forced. What once felt alive now feels distant. You sense the gap growing, but you hold on, not because you're unaware, but because you're hopeful. You hope he'll return to the man who saw you clearly. You tell yourself, maybe he's stressed, confused, overwhelmed. Maybe you think this is where your love proves itself strong enough to hold everything together. This is often the hardest test, the one he gives without meaning to. He stops bringing tenderness. He becomes quieter, colder, disconnected. And while it might look like rejection, he's watching something else deep inside. Will you abandon yourself again just to keep him close? This is where many women break, especially those who learned love as something they had to earn. They accept crumbs and call it patience. They justify neglect and call it loyalty. But what they're really doing is fading away. It's not devotion, it's self-betrayal dressed as love. In the psychology of love, this is the defining moment. It's not the sweet words or big gestures that show who you are. It's how you hold yourself when the connection starts slipping. True feminine strength isn't about how much she gives, but how much loss she can face without losing who she is. And this is where the woman of real worth rises. Not because she's cold, but because she's clear. Her energy no longer clings to what's slipping away. She doesn't plead or negotiate. She blesses him silently and walks toward the light of her own growth. Her power isn't built on pride, but on remembering that love is not supposed to demand her suffering. It's meant to meet her peace. Even as she leaves, the pain doesn't vanish. It lingers because letting go of hope hurts in its own unique way. But it's a clean pain, the kind that heals rather than destroys. And the man, if he ever genuinely cared, feels the echo of her absence. He realizes she never played games, never manipulated, never asked for more than honesty. She was ready to love him fully, but not ready to lose herself again. And he's left with her absence, an absence louder than her presence ever was. Because what she took with her wasn't anger, it was the mirror that showed him who he was. That echo stays because it wasn't simply her leaving, it was the quiet proof of her worth, the gentle reminder that if he ever wants to keep a woman like her, he must stop testing love and start offering it. And here's what you must remember. When a man tests you, it's not a game. It's an invitation to rise, to stay true to your values, and to embody the woman you've become through every wound and every moment of healing. You're not here to prove your worth. You're here to remember it. Tell me in the comments, have you ever felt a moment like this in your life? If this message touched you or helped you understand yourself more, give it a like, share it with someone who needs it, and make sure to subscribe for more insights on healing, self-worth, and the journey of feminine strength. And tell me which topics you'd like me to talk about next. I truly want to hear from you.